I died once, pushed off a rooftop by my own sister, discarded by the man I thought loved me. But fate gave me a second chance. And this time I wasn't here to cry or forgive. I smiled, played along. One scandal at a time, I buried them with the same hands they once held down. I didn't come back to survive, I came back to rule. In my past life, my sister Isabelle and I married into the king family on the same day. 2 daughters, 2 powerful alliances. Our parents were overjoyed. To them we weren't girls, we were leverage. Tools to secure lifelong prosperity. They liked to parade us around like polished pearls, proud of our perfect skin, poised smiles, and practiced obedience. A dream, they called it. An honor. But they didn't see the cracks. They didn't see how Isabelle hated Julian King, the cold second son she had married. He was a man of few words, obsessed with Buddhism and meditation retreats. A recluse in designer suits, he saw no need for romance. And Isabelle, who needed constant affirmation, lost her mind in the silence of their marriage. She cheated. And Julian punished her in a way no one could forget. Tied her with prayer beads, locked her up, and handed her over to his social circle like a broken toy. While Isabelle's life spiraled, I, Camille Hart, was married to Nathaniel King, the firstborn. Charming, magnetic, heir to crown dominion. People envied me. They saw the roses, not the thorns. The morning kisses, not the cruel indifference behind closed doors. Nathaniel was a man of appetites. Unholy ones. He wore the mask of a gentleman because I held the company's financial reins. I controlled the investments, managed the assets. I was his leash and he hated it. But he played his part. And I played mine. Until Isabelle snapped. He pushed me off a building. 27 floors. My body shattered. My blood stained the concrete of Crown Dominion's corporate plaza. My last thought was, this can't be how it ends. Not like this. But fate had a strange sense of humor. Because when I opened my eyes, I wasn't on a hospital bed. I was in my old bedroom. The lilac curtains danced in the breeze. My vanity table stood untouched. My skin flawless. My hands unscarred. My reflection young again. I was 17. And the date on the calendar? The day of our engagement banquet. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I sat in silence, my breath shallow, hands clutching the sheets as the memories of my last life surged like a tidal wave. The laughter. The lies. The betrayal. The fall. But most of all, the truth. That Isabelle, my sister, had hated me long before she ever dared to show it. Downstairs, the sound of footsteps and chatter floated up. I stood slowly, crossing to the window. The driveway was packed with catering vans. White roses were being carried inside. Staff buzzed like bees in a hive. A celebration was brewing. Just like before. And Isabelle? She was down there. I could feel it. The false sweetness. The venom cloaked in affection. I showered, dressed in the same pale blue dress I remembered wearing that morning, and walked down the staircase with quiet purpose. When I reached the landing, I saw them, our parents seated on the velvet couch, chatting eagerly with a butler. My father looked up, then gestured toward the entry hall. There she is, he said. Our Camille. I turned my head. There she stood. Isabelle. Her long curls were pinned in delicate waves, a strand of pearls around her neck. She wore blush pink, soft and feminine, her face glowing with something between mischief and malice. And when our eyes met, I knew. She remembered. Her smile faltered just for a second. The flicker of shock. Of fear. Then it snapped back into place, wider than before. Camille, she said sweetly. There you are. Come quickly. We've had a change in plans. I descended slowly, step by step. Julian just called, she continued, walking toward me, voice high and bright. He's refusing to marry me. He says he's fallen for you. The room stilled. My mother gasped in delight. My father looked stunned. What? I said, my voice low. Oh, don't act surprised, Isabelle giggled. Julian said he won't marry anyone but you. Isn't that romantic? My hands tightened at my sides. She stepped closer, her eyes glinting. Go on, sister. Don't be shy. Call him husband already. Before I could answer, the front doors opened. And Julian King walked in. He was exactly as I remembered. Tall, impeccably dressed in a charcoal gray suit, his black hair neatly combed, expression unreadable. A faint scent of sandalwood followed him, subtle and calming, like a monastery in the mountains. Isabelle turned toward him with theatrical glee. "Julian," she said, her voice syrupy. "Look who's here. Your lovely bride." And then she shoved me straight into his chest. Gasps erupted around the room. My heel caught the edge of the carpet and I nearly fell. But Julian's hands caught me, firm and steady. Not intimate, just courteous. He held me a second longer than necessary, then gently stepped back. "Miss Hart," he said, voice smooth and expression blank. "Please be careful." I steadied myself, keeping my face demure. "Thank you, Mr. King," I murmured. He gave a polite nod and walked past me toward the dining hall. Everyone was staring. My father blinked rapidly. My mother clasped her hands to her chest. And Isabelle? She was practically trembling with joy. She leaned in and whispered, "You're welcome, dear sister. I just gifted you the coldest man alive." I smiled. But inside I whispered back, "And I'll make him fall for me this time, just to watch you burn." That evening the engagement banquet began in full swing. Crystal chandeliers bathed the ballroom in golden light. Rows of violinists played something classical. Guests arrived in droves. Politicians, business moguls, media elites. The who's who of high society. Nathaniel King arrived fashionably late. He wore a white tuxedo jacket and a smug smile. His gaze swept the room before landing on Isabelle. She lit up like a chandelier. "Hi, darling," she purred, linking her arm through his. "You're late." "I'm worth the wait," he murmured back, his lips brushing her ear. I watched from across the room, my hand resting lightly on Julian's arm. He said nothing. He had barely spoken since the incident earlier. But he didn't leave my side. That for now was enough. Isabelle caught my eye from across the ballroom. She was glowing. She had seduced Nathaniel in record time. She had won, again. Or so she thought. Let her have her moment. Let her wear the crown of a queen for a night. Because soon her kingdom would fall. I stood perfectly poised beside Julian as our names were called. Julian King and Miss Camille Hart, formally engaged today under the blessing of both families. Applause. Flashbulbs. Cameras whirred. My father beamed. My mother dabbed her eyes with a lace handkerchief. Isabelle raised a glass to the crowd, smiling like the devil in pearls. I felt Julian shift beside me. I turned just slightly, my voice so low no one else could hear. "You don't have to pretend. I know you're not interested in marriage." He glanced down at me, one brow raising faintly. "I won't interfere with your lifestyle," I continued calmly. "All I ask is your protection. In exchange, you can count on mine." A moment passed. Then to my surprise, the faintest smile touched his lips. "You're not like the others." "No," I replied, eyes locked ahead. "I'm not." And as the final toast echoed through the hall, I felt it. I wouldn't be the one falling. This time I was going to win. The first day of married life felt exactly as I expected. Quiet, gilded, and utterly empty. Julian didn't come home that night. Nor the night after. Instead, he left a simple handwritten note delivered by a servant. "An overseas temple retreat has requested my presence. I will return in 3 weeks. All expenses have been arranged. Julian." That was it. No kiss. No call. No expectations. My wedding dress was still hanging in the closet. My shoes still lined up under the bed like soldiers waiting for a war that never came. And yet I felt nothing. No loneliness. No shock. Because I had lived this life before. Back then his absence had confused me. Made me wonder what I had done wrong. Why he was so disinterested in me. I had tried to win his attention with tea sets and dinners, only to be met with polite silence. This time I knew better. I wasn't here to be loved. I was here to rise. The mansion Julian gifted me was located on the city's most prestigious hilltop, an estate surrounded by cherry blossom trees, with glass walls that framed the skyline like a living painting. 3 personal maids. 2 drivers. 1 personal assistant. And no one to answer to. Even my parents were wary of contacting me. They had secured what they wanted. Alliances. Influence. They had moved on to their next agenda. I spent my mornings walking barefoot across the heated floors, sipping tea from bone china cups, watching the sun rise through crystal panels. My afternoons were spent flipping through old newspapers. The headlines. The financial trends. The business mergers that had happened last time. I took notes in a leather-bound journal, my handwriting as precise as a scalpel. I wasn't investing yet. Not yet. But I was remembering. Calculating. Relearning the world I was about to reshape. Isabelle, on the other hand, couldn't stop flaunting herself. Every hour a new social media post. Her and Nathaniel at a 5-star brunch. Her in a red backless dress on his yacht. Her laughing in the passenger seat of his Aston Martin. And of course the hashtags. Hashtag Mrs. King, hashtag Crown Dominionaire, hashtag Wifey Life. It was almost laughable. She had done it, locked down Nathaniel. She must have believed that since she had switched our fates, she had also switched the outcome. That she would now live my past life of power, wealth, and praise. Poor thing. She had no idea she'd married the devil in disguise. A week after the engagement banquet, Isabelle called. I stared at the screen for a long time before answering. Her face appeared, perfectly lit, framed by silk pillows and designer wallpaper. "Camille," she greeted, voice honeyed. "I hope you're enjoying your honeymoon." I smiled softly. "It's been peaceful." Peaceful. Her brows rose with feigned sympathy. "I can imagine. Julian's not exactly the romantic type. But I'm sure he'll warm up eventually, or maybe not. He is a bit like a statue." "I'm sure you remember," I said calmly, watching her freeze for a second. She quickly recovered. "Well, Nathaniel is nothing like that. He's so attentive. We're heading to the Riviera next week. Just us, the yacht, and some champagne." She tilted the camera slightly to show a velvet jewelry box in her lap. Inside sat a 16-carat pink diamond. A rare piece from Crown Dominion's private vault. "Isn't it stunning?" she said, beaming. "It's worth more than most people's homes. But you wouldn't care about that, right? I mean, you've always been humble." A classic Isabelle move. "I'm happy for you," I said. And I meant it. Because the higher she climbed, the farther she'd fall. Julian returned 10 days earlier than planned. I was in the garden pruning a few bonsai trees. An old habit I picked up in my last life to relieve tension. The gate opened and he stepped in holding a travel bag and a clay-wrapped bundle. He looked tired. Not in the way most men do after flights, but in the quiet way that comes from carrying too much silence. "Mr. King," I greeted, standing. He raised an eyebrow. "Julian is fine." I nodded. "You're back early." The temple's head monk suffered a stroke. I was no longer needed. He handed me the bundle. I unwrapped it carefully. It was a handcrafted teapot, rough, earthy, and elegant in its simplicity. "I thought you might like it," he said. "You drink a lot of tea." Something about the way he said it made me pause. He had noticed. I smiled faintly. "Thank you. It's beautiful." He nodded once, then turned and walked into the house. Still silent. Still distant. But I wasn't bothered. Because something had changed. For the first time in either life, Julian King had observed me. That was enough. A few days later, Isabelle hosted a brunch at the Crown Dominion estate. Of course I was invited. The wives of wealthy heirs were expected to make appearances. It was all part of the performance. Smiles, dresses, and subtle daggers. I wore an ivory silk pantsuit and diamond hairpins Julian had mailed from Kyoto. My assistant chose a minimalist Birkin to pair it with. I let her. I wasn't here to impress. I was here to watch. The Crown Dominion estate hadn't changed. Massive crystal chandeliers, Italian marble, 1,000 too many mirrors. Nathaniel loved reflections, especially of himself. Isabelle greeted me with air kisses and syrupy sweetness. "Camille, I'm so glad you came." Her eyes darted to my bare neck. No flashy necklace. No giant gem. He relaxed. The guests gathered under the glass atrium. Isabelle stood beside Nathaniel, champagne in one hand, her other hand resting possessively on his chest. "I just want to thank everyone for their love," she said with a practiced giggle. "Being married to Nathaniel has been a dream come true." A few women applauded. Some rolled their eyes. "She always wanted to be me," Isabelle had once told someone behind my back in our last life. "Now she finally gets to be Julian's ghost." Well, I was here. And I was very much alive. "Camille," she called sweetly, "you've been so quiet. What's married life like for you?" "Monastic." I smiled. "Liberating." She blinked. "You know," I continued, swirling my glass, "some husbands treat their wives like dolls. Others treat them like partners. Julian treats me like an equal. No interference. No theatrics. Just peace." Someone murmured in agreement. Isabelle's lips twitched. And besides, I added lightly, between your social media schedule and yacht trips, I'd say you're the one who's been spiritually abandoned. A ripple of quiet laughter followed. Isabelle's expression soured. Nathaniel, for all his charisma, offered her no rescue. He was too busy chatting with a redhead in heels 3 inches too high. I stepped back, letting my smile linger just long enough to remind her. I didn't need a man on my arm to win. Later that evening, Julian called for me. I found him in his study, barefoot, seated in lotus position on a meditation mat. Candles flickered around him. I've signed over the estate on Hawthorne Hill, he said simply. I blinked. To me. Yes. You'll manage it from now on. Or sell it. I don't care. I stared at him, unsure. You trust me that much? No, he said, looking at me calmly. I don't trust anyone. But I find you efficient. He stood, straightened his sleeves, and looked at me with those unreadable eyes. You're not what I expected. I stepped closer. What did you expect? A wife who'd try to melt me with affection. Or scream at me for being cold. You did neither. I'm not here to change you, I said. I'm here to survive. He didn't smile. But something softened around his eyes. I suspect, he murmured, you're here to do more than that. He turned and walked out. And in that moment I realized, Julian King may have been cold. But he wasn't blind. The day of Isabelle's wedding arrived with the subtlety of a thunderclap. Every society column buzzed with headlines. Crown Dominion's heir marries belle of the elite. Nathaniel King and Isabelle Hart tie the knot in unparalleled luxury. A wedding worth over $300 million. It was less a union and more a coronation. Isabelle had spared no expense, and she wanted the world to know. The venue was a private island off the coast, bought specifically for the ceremony. The entire guest list had to be flown in by chartered helicopters and yachts. Paparazzi weren't allowed, but high-profile influencers were. And they documented everything. The gowns. The gold-accented altar. The imported swans. I watched it all unfold with detached amusement as Julian's driver dropped me off at the marina. I was dressed in slate gray silk, elegant, understated. My only jewelry was a pair of diamond earrings Julian had gifted me the night before with a one-line note. If you must go, don't embarrass me. He wasn't attending. Of course not. Julian hated spectacle. And frankly, so did I. Still, appearances had to be kept. I was the younger Hart sister. The new Mrs. King's family. The wife of the second son. The perfect prop. The ceremony was designed like a royal fantasy. Rows of fresh orchids arched into floral tunnels. A custom-built glass walkway led down to the beach, where the bride would arrive by gondola. Yes, a gondola. Imported from Venice. I took a seat near the front, crossing my legs as cameras flashed from all angles. Every guest here was dressed to compete, but Isabelle had already won. He made sure of it. A dramatic pause. And then, there she was. Isabelle Hart, now Isabelle King, stepped onto the aisle with a practiced smile and the kind of self-importance only the truly insecure ever learned to perfect. Her gown sparkled with hand-stitched crystals. The diamond tiara atop her head could have fed 10 villages. And around her neck she wore a pink diamond the size of a goose egg. Whispers rippled through the crowd. That's the Rosalind gem. It was locked in Crown Dominion's vault for decades. He gave it to her? Already. She smiled as the buzz built around her. And when she passed my row, she gave me the softest, slowest smirk. I tilted my head in return, my expression unreadable. Enjoy it while it lasts. The vows were performative. Nathaniel placed the ring on her finger with all the sincerity of a politician making a campaign promise. Isabelle giggled like a teenager. The crowd clapped. They kissed. Fireworks exploded over the ocean. And just like that, she became Mrs. Isabelle King. The reception began immediately after. Champagne fountains. Gold leaf on every dish. A 5-tier cake made of spun sugar and edible pearls. Isabelle glided through the crowd, holding Nathaniel's arm like she owned him. Maybe she thought she did. I watched her pose for pictures with him, lean in too close when women got near, and shoot me little glances like she was daring me to react. I didn't. Instead, I sipped my wine, laughed with investors I already knew from my last life, and played the quiet, beautiful mystery in the corner. The one nobody could quite figure out. Eventually she cornered me. I knew it was coming. "Camille," she said, plopping into the seat beside me, her dress ballooning around her like she was holding court. "Did you like the ceremony?" "It was impressive," I said honestly. She beamed. "Nathaniel wanted everything to be perfect for me. The flowers, the yacht, the ring." She held out her hand dramatically, letting the pink diamond catch the light. 65 million. Custom cut. "It's beautiful," I said. "A bit heavy maybe. But I suppose if it ever gets too much, you can use it as a paperweight." Her smile froze. I took another sip of wine. She composed herself. "Julian didn't come?" "He's not fond of public events. Or marriage, I hear." "True," I said with a soft smile. "But he's fond of peace. And silence. Which I'm quite good at." She leaned in. "You really don't care that I'm Mrs. King now, do you?" "Not at all," I said lightly. "You're perfectly suited. Flashy. Loud. Addicted to attention." She narrowed her eyes. "Be careful, Camille. He's mine now." I looked her straight in the eye. "Then you should really start getting tested." She blinked. "Excuse me." I leaned closer, my tone lower, just enough for only her to hear. "You do know Nathaniel had a thing for men. In dresses. Right? Or were you too busy collecting jewelry to notice?" Her cheeks went white. I continued, "But I'm sure it's all in the past." "Right." He stared at me stunned. I rose gracefully, setting my empty glass down. "Congratulations again, sister. You've truly outdone yourself. I hope the honeymoon's as memorable as the wedding." And I walked away, heels clicking softly on the marble floor, leaving her sitting there, clutching her wineglass like a lifeline. That night the wedding photos went viral. Isabelle and Nathaniel dancing under a sky of fireworks. Isabelle holding her dress like a fairy tale bride. Isabelle kissing him on the cheek while he stared somewhere else entirely. The comments were glowing. "Queen energy. That ring though crown fire. Perfect couple, perfect wedding." And yet there I was too. One photo of me standing alone under a string of fairy lights, looking back over my shoulder in a storm gray dress. Caption read, "Who is the mystery woman beside Julian King?" Funny. I wasn't beside anyone. But somehow I was already being noticed. The next morning I received a video call. I didn't even check the name. Isabelle appeared on screen in a silk robe, her hair perfectly curled, her lips cherry red. "Camille," she said, trying to sound casual. "Just thought I'd show you something." She tilted the camera. There, sitting on the vanity table, was a new necklace. Emeralds this time. Emeralds and sapphires. Gorgeous, right? Nathaniel gave it to me this morning. Said I deserved to be spoiled. "I'm sure you do," I replied. She smiled. "He was so gentle last night. Kind of a real man. And sober." Her smile twitched. "Excuse me. Just wondering. Nathaniel used to need a drink or two to perform. Or someone in the room who wasn't his wife." "You're disgusting. I'm not the one married to him." She glared. "You think this makes you better than me? You're married to Julian, Mr. Ghost of the family. He won't even touch you." I smiled sweetly. "Touching me isn't a requirement. Staying out of my way is." Her face hardened. "I suggest you enjoy the honeymoon phase," I said calmly. "Because if Nathaniel is anything like before, you'll be spending the rest of the marriage dodging diseases and tracking his location." She hung up, and I smiled. That evening I sat in my garden with a cup of tea, the city lights stretching far below. Julian joined me for the first time in days, dressed in all black, his expression unreadable as always. "How was the wedding?" he asked. "Overdone," I said. "She looked like she was auditioning for a throne." He didn't laugh. But he did pour me tea. "She thinks she's won," I murmured. Julian raised an eyebrow. "Has she?" I smiled faintly, swirling the cup in my hand. "No," I said. "She's just set the stage for her downfall." When Julian's mother smiled at me during brunch, I should have known it was a trap. We were seated in the East Pavilion of the King family estate, surrounded by orchids and calla lilies flown in from Osaka. Isabelle was gushing about some event she'd hosted at the Crown Dominion Hotel, laughing a little too loudly, her hands fluttering like butterflies as she relished the attention. Julian sat beside me in silence, sipping tea. Across from us, Victoria King, his mother and the unofficial queen of the dynasty, folded her manicured hands and tilted her head. "Camille," she said with warmth that felt too measured, "you've adjusted so quickly. But I do wonder. What are your plans?" "Pie plans?" I asked, pretending not to know where she was headed. "You've always been ambitious, haven't you? And now that you're a king, I imagine you're eager to contribute to the family legacy." Beside me, Julian set his teacup down with a quiet clink. He didn't speak. He didn't have to. His mother's games weren't new. I smiled softly. "Of course. I'd be honored to contribute. If there's a way I can help. I'm ready." Her eyes glittered with satisfaction. "How wonderful," she said sweetly. "The Crown Dominion fashion division has been underperforming." Pause. A smirk. "It's yours." Fashion. Of all things, they gave me fashion. The division had been losing money for years. Multiple directors had come and gone, both local and international. The most recent one had left in tears after an industry blog called the Crown Dominion line, a laughable attempt at couture by bored billionaires. It was, in short, a graveyard. Even Isabelle looked startled when she heard the news later that day. "You took it?" she asked, eyebrows raised in disbelief. "Seriously?" "I did." She blinked, then smirked. "Good luck, sister. At least it'll keep you busy while Julian's off chasing his next spiritual awakening." What she meant was, "You're going to fail. And I'll get to watch." I let her believe it. The fashion division headquarters were located in a sleek glass tower downtown, half empty and reeking of desperation. My first day I walked in unannounced. The receptionists barely looked up. The staff clearly thought I was there to pose for photos, play dress-up, or maybe redecorate the executive office. They had no idea. I met with the top-level team that afternoon. 10 managers, 2 design leads, and a marketing director who didn't even bother hiding her boredom during the meeting. I let them talk. Buzzwords. Excuses. Shifting blame. When they were done, I stood. "You're all fired," I said calmly. They laughed. I didn't. "Effective immediately," I added. One by one the laughter died. "You can't just." "I can," I said, turning to my assistant. "HR has already prepared the separation letters. Their badges are deactivated as of now." That night, news spread through the tower like wildfire. The new Mrs. King wasn't playing games. Over the next week, I brought in new blood. I visited the top art and design universities across the country. Privately, quietly. I met with professors. Reviewed student portfolios. Offered one-on-one mentorships to the most promising candidates. And for those too young or unknown to be noticed by luxury houses, I launched an internal design competition. First prize, $300,000 and a full-time designer contract. Second prize, $200,000 and part-time mentorship. Third prize, $100,000 and portfolio sponsorship. Applicants flooded in. Not for the money, though it didn't hurt, but because finally someone was offering a real platform. I wasn't interested in runway trends or recycled silhouettes. I wanted disruption. Something the market hadn't seen. Something no one would expect from Crown Dominion. Julian didn't ask what I was doing. But he started coming home more frequently. At first it was small things. A note left in my office, "Your Tokyo textile order has arrived." A call from his assistant, "Mr. King has secured you exclusive use of the greenhouse venue for your show." Then one evening, as I was reviewing swatches in the garden, he appeared beside me holding a steaming cup of matcha. "I heard you fired 18 people," he said. 19, I corrected. One tried to sue me for emotional distress. "Did you settle?" I gave him a bonus for honesty and let him go anyway. Julian's lips curved slightly. "You're different." "From Isabelle?" "From everyone." He handed me the cup. It was hot. Smooth. Earthy. Like him. By week 3 the office was unrecognizable. My new team worked like possessed artists. Passionate, exhausted, inspired. Designs were pouring in. Influencer stylists started leaking sketches online. The buzz began to build. I partnered with an up-and-coming digital marketing agency to create a mystery campaign. #RebirthCrown. No logos. No context. Just one haunting image of a broken porcelain doll pieced back together with gold. Within 48 hours the hashtag trended. Fashion blogs speculated wildly. Is Crown Dominion staging a comeback? A rebranding in progress? The guesses were wrong. This wasn't a rebranding. It was a resurrection. When Julian's mother heard about the campaign, she called Julian directly. "She's reckless," she snapped. "That division is supposed to be a formality, not a circus. Why is she stirring the press?" Julian's answer was simple. "She's making progress." She didn't call again. The day of the launch arrived like a storm held back by silk curtains. I chose the greenhouse, Crown Dominion's most exclusive venue. Glass ceiling, indoor waterfalls, and 1,000 orchids hanging from the beams. The city's elite came expecting a cocktail event. What they got instead was a statement. Models walked barefoot. No music. Just the sound of water and wind. The designs, hybrid pieces blending couture with armor, told a story. Resurrection, war, power. When the final model walked down the aisle in a molten gold trench coat stitched with fragments of broken mirrors, the room fell into stunned silence. Then applause. Thunderous. Relentless. I didn't take a bow. I didn't need to. The orders started pouring in before the final guest had even left. That night, back at home, Julian was waiting for me. He was barefoot again, leaning against the doorway, his gaze unreadable. "You didn't just revive it," he said. "You turned it into a weapon." I poured myself a drink. "You gave me a blade," I replied. "I sharpened it." He stared at me for a long time, then walked forward and gently touched my wrist. "Camille," he said, "what exactly are you planning?" I smiled. And for the first time I told him the truth. Everything. Success makes people talk. But disruption, that makes people listen. 2 weeks after the fashion launch, I was everywhere. Front pages. Blog headlines. Industry panels. The rebirth of Crown Dominion fashion. Camille Hartking, the silent strategist. Luxury's cold phoenix. Julian, to his credit, said nothing. But his actions were louder than applause. He appeared at 2 of my press events, standing quietly at the back. Never interrupting. Just observing. But his presence didn't go unnoticed. One magazine captioned us. "The power couple Crown Dominion didn't expect." Isabelle, however, couldn't stand it. She had spent weeks basking in her new title, Mrs. Nathaniel King. She believed the world should revolve around her. She thought the hotel division she was handed was a reward for her image, not a test of her competence. And so she did what Isabelle always did. She started faking it. Isabelle's version of managing the hotel chain included taking over the Crown Dominion Instagram page and filling it with filtered selfies, hosting tasteless influencer parties in presidential suites, replacing fine dining chefs with viral TikTok recipe stars. It was a circus. But because I was generating positive press and investor confidence, the company image held steady, for a while. Until I stopped holding it. The first blow was a video leak. A short clip from one of her hotels. Cleaning staff using the same towel to wipe the toilet, the counter, and the guest mugs. No commentary. No edits. Just raw footage. I didn't need to do much. I let it go to one media account anonymously. Within hours it went viral. The hashtags exploded. Hashtag Crown Dominion fail. Hashtag hotel horror. Hashtag clean your act up. Isabelle tried to spin it. Called it an isolated incident. Claimed the video was staged by competitors. No one bought it. Especially after a second clip surfaced. Then a third. The worst part. She didn't even know how deep the rot went. Because she'd never visited the supply wings. Never spoke to her employees. Never asked how anything worked. She posed. She posted. She smiled. And now she burned. Still, the hotel scandal wasn't enough. She could blame the staff. She needed something unforgivable. So I turned to her jewelry line. Isabelle's designs had been praised early on, bold, modern, and unique. Except they weren't. My assistant compiled a side-by-side report. Isabelle's latest collection and an indie artist's line from Portugal released 5 years ago. They were identical. The pattern. Even the so-called symbolic engraving. We didn't leak it directly. We tipped off 3 boutique jewelers who had quietly lost clients to Isabelle's inflated marketing campaign. They posted first. Outrage followed. The design community devoured her. Plagiarist in pearls, one article called her. And that was just the beginning. I watched it unfold from the rooftop garden of my villa, tea in hand. Julian joined me as the sun set, sleeves rolled, holding a tablet with live analytics. Your name is now trending higher than Isabelle's by 6 slots, he said. I assume I've replaced her on the company's homepage? He nodded. The board updated it this morning. She'll notice. She already has. He handed me the tablet. Isabelle's public profile was tanking. Comment sections were flooded with gifs of her tripping at events, mistranslating designer names and misquoting Gandhi. It was perfect. The family dinner that followed was unusually quiet. The entire King family gathered at the main estate for the quarterly business roundtable, a ritual of pride masked as protocol. Isabelle arrived late. She looked like a cracked figurine glued together in a rush, perfect makeup, trembling lips and eyes shadowed with denial. Nathaniel walked in behind her, distracted, texting. Julian and I arrived together. I wore black satin. My only accessory was the emerald cuff from our Tokyo collection, already sold out and now being scalped online for 5 times the price. As we took our seats, I noticed the difference. Last quarter, Julian and I were seated on the far left, silent placeholders. Tonight, we were beside the head seat. Old Mr. King, the family patriarch, raised his glass and addressed us first. To Julian, he said, voice steady. For securing our company's reputation through quiet competence. Then he turned to me. And to Camille. For proving that legacy is earned, not inherited. Applause followed. I glanced at Isabelle across the table. She looked like she was choking on her wine. After dinner, Isabelle cornered me near the koi pond, her heels stabbing into the grass. You, she hissed, think you're clever. I don't think it, I said. I know it. Her nails dug into her palm. I will come back from this. Nathaniel believes in me. Does he? I glanced toward the ballroom where Nathaniel was flirting with someone half his age. Her jaw clenched. Don't get too comfortable, she spat. You're not immune. Julian may tolerate you now, but that won't last. He doesn't love you. I stepped closer, lowering my voice. I don't need love, Isabelle. I need power. And right now, I have both. She stared at me, speechless. Then I turned and walked away, heels silent on the stone path, the koi shimmering below me like golden ghosts. That night, Julian poured me a glass of sake in the kitchen while I reviewed market reports. I assumed that wasn't an accident, he said, handing me the glass. What wasn't? Your sister's fall. I took a sip. I merely stopped protecting her. Julian studied me for a moment, then nodded. There's something else, he said. I looked up. My father asked if I would consider returning to the executive board full-time, he said. Because of your connection to me? No, he said. Because of your performance. And my proximity to it. I smiled. So they're finally realizing the value of the second son. His gaze was steady. They're realizing the value of the woman beside him. Power doesn't collapse overnight. It rots slowly beneath the surface, until one nudge sends it crumbling into ash. Nathaniel had always thought himself untouchable, the golden boy of crown dominion. The first son. The heir. The brand. But I knew better. Because I had seen his darkness from the inside. I had lived with it. Covered for it. Buried the bruises in diamond bracelets and the silence of private jets. In this life I would do none of that. This time I would let him fall, and I would make the world watch. It started with a message. Anonymous, of course. A single file sent to a mid-tier gossip site. Just enough credibility to avoid suspicion and just obscure enough to avoid detection. The video showed Nathaniel entering a private hotel suite with 3 other men and a transgender escort. All laughing, intoxicated and visibly high. I had the full footage. I only released 14 seconds. That was all it took. By midnight it was everywhere. The media detonated. Crown Dominion heir in explicit video scandal. Nathaniel King. Drugs, escorts and secret parties? What happened at the Grand Meridian Suite 510? The video was clipped, blurred and looped endlessly on talk shows. Anonymous sources began coming forward. Stories emerged of hush money, destroyed phones and NDAs issued like candy. And just like that, the man who once stood on stage giving speeches about legacy and morality became a walking scandal. I watched it all from my villa balcony, legs crossed, sipping iced oolong. Julian stood behind me, arms folded. He didn't speak, not until the third video dropped. This one showed Nathaniel surrounded by underage girls, all dressed up and giggling as he poured them drinks. It was old footage. Dated 2 years ago. Buried once. But not this time. This won't just be a PR nightmare, Julian said quietly. I know. It could ruin the family. It'll purify the family. He studied me. Then slowly he nodded. Within 24 hours, Crown Dominion's stock dropped 11.3%. An emergency board meeting was called. Investors demanded action. I didn't attend, I didn't need to. Julian went in my place in a perfectly tailored navy suit, speaking little and listening even less. When the vice president's seat was addressed, Julian stood. My brother is unwell, he said smoothly. For the sake of the brand and the integrity of this institution, he must step down, at least temporarily. The word temporarily was a formality. Everyone knew it was permanent. By the time Julian returned that night, Nathaniel had been suspended indefinitely. Isabelle called me that night, sobbing. He's innocent, she wailed. You know what this media does. They twist everything. You know him, Camille. You know he wouldn't. I knew him, I said coldly. I knew everything. She gasped. You did this. No, Isabelle. Nathaniel did this. You're jealous, she spat. You couldn't handle that I got the better man. I laughed softly. The better man? You mean the one who now faces criminal charges for trafficking and abuse? You're a monster. No, sister, I whispered. I'm your mirror. She hung up. The collapse had only just begun. I turned my attention to Nathaniel's circle, the men he partied with, drank with, covered for. Using a network of private investigators and a few contacts from my past life, I compiled a dossier. Drugs, underage escorts, tax evasion, money laundering. It was all there. I sent it to an international journalist known for exposing elite corruption. She ran the story in under 12 hours. The police launched an internal inquiry. 3 of Nathaniel's closest friends were arrested within a week. And though Nathaniel's own drug tests came back negative, the public had already made up its mind. He was guilty. He was done. Julian watched it unfold with chilling stillness. He was no longer just the second son. He was the clean one. The capable one. The one who stood beside the woman rebuilding everything the Kings had nearly destroyed. At the next board meeting, his father, once dismissive, once silent, looked him in the eye and said, "You'll take over interim operations." Julian didn't blink. "I'll do what's necessary." Meanwhile, Isabelle was crumbling. Her designer post stopped. Her flawless photos disappeared. She was seen outside a clinic wearing sunglasses and a scarf, pushing past reporters as they screamed questions. "Did you know about the underage girls? What about the drugs? Is Nathaniel hiding at your estate?" One headline read, "From Queen to Collateral, Isabelle King's rapid fall from grace." Almost felt bad. Almost. That week I was invited to a televised investor summit. I wore a structured black dress and spoke clearly about sustainability and innovation in fashion. One anchor asked, "Mrs. Hartking, how do you stay focused amidst the recent controversies?" I smiled. When you build on your own 2 feet, it's easy to stay grounded. Later that evening, that quote would go viral. I returned home to find Julian in the living room reading. He looked up as I entered. "You were perfect," he said simply. I raised an eyebrow. "You watched." He set the book down. "You're the future of this family, Camille. I'd be an idiot not to." It wasn't flattery. It was recognition. Nathaniel tried to fight back, of course. He released a half-baked statement blaming fabricated footage and political enemies. He tried to rally allies, but most had already vanished. At the next shareholders' gathering, his name was quietly removed from the vice president plaque. In its place, Julian King. And directly under him, Camille Hartking, Executive Director of Brand Strategy. I signed the paperwork with steady hands. When I exited the boardroom, reporters surged forward. "Mrs. Hartking, how does it feel to rise so quickly?" I smiled, brushing past them with grace. "Natural." Later that night, Julian and I stood on the rooftop balcony of the Crown Dominion Tower, the city glittering below. "Do you feel satisfied?" he asked. "No," I said honestly. Why? Because I'm not finished yet. He looked at me, a faint flicker of pride in his eyes. Then let's finish it. The message came on a Thursday evening. Short, plain, deceptively innocent. Let's meet. No cameras. No claws. Just sisters. Rooftop. Midnight. I stared at the screen, the edges of my mind curling with déjà vu. Rooftop. Midnight. That was where it had ended for me in the last life. Isabelle's last smile before she pushed me off the ledge still haunted me sometimes, ghosting through my dreams like a cruel echo. She hadn't even screamed. Just watched me fall. And now she wanted to meet there again? This wasn't nostalgia. It was a trap. Perfect. I wore black. No jewelry. No heels. No expression. Julian watched from the foyer, eyes calm but unblinking. I can come with you, he said. I buttoned my coat. You won't need to. His gaze lingered. She's desperate. I know. And dangerous. I'm counting on it. The rooftop of the old Crown Dominion Tower hadn't changed. Same steel rails. Same blinking red lights above the skyline. Same humming silence that made the city feel too far, too cold. Isabelle stood near the edge in a long crimson dress. Her hair whipped in the wind. The fabric clung to her body, revealing bruises, ugly purple-black blooms that even designer silk couldn't hide. She turned as I stepped forward. Camille, she said, voice thin. You came. I figured you'd want to finish what you started, I replied. She smiled, unhinged, glassy. You're clever. Always were. I used to hate that. I said nothing. She stepped closer. You destroyed everything, she whispered. You stole my spotlight. My place. My husband. I let out a short breath. Your husband destroyed himself. No, she snapped. You turned him into a monster. You made the world hate me. I gave up everything for this family. Everything. Her hands were trembling. I wanted you humiliated, she said. But you kept rising. Like a disease that won't die. I tilted my head. And here I thought you invited me for a sisterly chat. She laughed. A choked, broken sound. Do you believe in past lives, Camille? I do now. She took a slow step forward, her voice sharp and brittle. Then you should know, in every one of them you die first. From beneath her dress, her hand emerged, clutching a knife. I didn't flinch. I let Ethan ruin you last time, she said, voice rising. But this time I'll do it myself. She lunged. But she never made it far. The rooftop door burst open. Shouts. Gunmetal flashes. Boots on steel. Drop the weapon. Isabelle froze, eyes wide, the blade inches from my chest. 10 officers swarmed in, weapons drawn, floodlights painting her in white. She stared at me. You knew. I knew the moment you signed the invitation. I stepped back as 2 officers tackled her to the ground. The knife clattered across the concrete. She screamed, rage, shock, betrayal. I crouched beside her as they cuffed her wrists. Don't worry, I whispered, voice soft. You won't die today. That would be merciful. And you don't deserve mercy. Her eyes filled with fury and fear. I'll come back, she hissed. You hear me? I'll come back stronger. Just like you. I smiled. No, Isabelle. You're not me. You never were. The news broke the next morning. Isabelle King arrested for attempted murder. Tragic end to the Hart sisters saga. From heiress to inmate, how it all fell apart. The footage was impossible to spin. She was recorded holding the knife, lunging. The tabloids feasted. Crown Dominion released a statement of disavowal. Julian personally signed it. The family's legal team worked quickly, but it didn't matter. The trial lasted 3 weeks. She was sentenced to 15 years. Attempted murder. Intent to harm. Assault with a deadly weapon. I didn't attend the sentencing. But I sent a letter to the judge, detailing how she had once pushed me off the roof of the same building, in another life no one would believe. I didn't need them to believe it. I remembered. That was enough. Isabelle's prison intake photo made the rounds online. Pale. Hollow-eyed. Hair chopped. No makeup. The girl who once measured her worth in diamonds and followers now wore a numbered jumpsuit and rubber slippers. A few family members visited in the beginning. By the 3rd month, even those stopped coming. She faded. Exactly how I planned. At home, Julian placed a thin silver bracelet around my wrist. A lotus flower charm dangled from it, hand-carved, smooth. "She almost got you again," he said, voice tight. "She never stood a chance. She hates you. She envied me. She wanted to destroy you." I looked at him. "She made me." That night I stared at the ceiling of our bedroom, rain pattering softly against the windows. 15 years. That's what they gave her. But time, I knew, was just the beginning. I had placed insiders on her cell block. Officers who owed me favors. Inmates who needed protection. Nurses. Guards. She would live every day remembering what she lost. The world she tried to bury me in. Now she was the one drowning in it. And the day she walked out of that prison? That would be Judgment Day. It began as most revolutions do, with silence. No grand press conference. No victory parade. Just a quiet announcement from Crown Dominion's board of directors. Effective immediately, Mr. Julian King will step into an advisory role as Chairman Emeritus. All operational authority will be transitioned to Mrs. Camille Hart King, now appointed President and Chief Executive Officer of Crown Dominion Group. It was a single paragraph. But it echoed across industries. The shareholders' room was still as Julian stood at the head of the table, tall and composed in an ash-gray suit. A slight breeze stirred from the windows behind him, but nothing else moved. "I've served as your interim leader with quiet diligence," he said. "But our company needs more than steadiness. It needs vision, precision, and fire." He turned to me, then stepped aside. "There is only one person qualified to carry that flame." The room rose as one. A slow, respectful bow. And when Julian pulled back my chair and gestured for me to sit, I did. Not as a guest. Not as a placeholder. But as the woman who had claimed the throne. Under my leadership, Crown Dominion didn't just recover. It dominated. The fashion division became a benchmark across global luxury houses, placing in the top 10 worldwide in under 2 years. The hotel branch was rebuilt from the ground up, rebranded under a clean, modern name. I fired Isabelle's entire managerial team and brought in experts who had once refused to even take our calls. Our stock tripled in value. Our presence stretched from Manhattan to Milan to Seoul. We weren't just a conglomerate anymore. We were an empire. And I was its empress. Julian never interfered. He remained my closest ally, my quiet shadow. He reviewed mergers beside me in silence, poured tea when I forgot to eat, and shielded me from opportunistic vultures at public events. People whispered that he was soft now, domesticated. They were wrong. He simply understood power didn't need to roar. Sometimes, it only needed to stand still while the storm passed. And while I ran the empire, he carved wood in the garden, still sculpting tiny lotus flowers as if we weren't sitting atop billions. He didn't need the spotlight. He had me. Ethan died quietly. The official report called it cardiac failure due to pre-existing conditions. Unofficially, there were whispers. An altercation. An infection. A debt unpaid. But no one truly mourned him. His body was cremated 2 days after the announcement. The urn was collected by no one. Julian and I didn't speak of it. We didn't have to. His death wasn't revenge. It was rot that had finally caught up. Isabelle was released after serving only 9 years. Good behavior. She left the correctional facility in the early hours, escorted by a single officer. Cameras tried to catch her. They never did. She vanished. Some said she fled the country. Others claimed she changed her name and lived in a small town selling costume jewelry to tourists. I didn't investigate. Her vanishing act wasn't an escape. It was the final surrender. She would never reclaim anything again. Not her name, not her dignity, not her shadow. And she knew it. That was enough for me. I sat alone in the private penthouse one night, overlooking the city I now owned in every corner, from the billboards flashing my brand to the headquarters that bore my name. A soft knock sounded at the door. Julian stepped in, a simple black tray in hand. On it, jasmine tea and a carved wooden lotus with a tiny gold inlay at the center. He set the tray beside me, then sat silently. We watched the lights in silence. Then he reached for my hand. "I used to wonder," he murmured, "what it would feel like to matter to someone. You matter to me." His fingers curled around mine. "You have everything now," he said quietly. "Power. Wealth. Control. No one can touch you. I turned to look at him, my voice low. Then why do I still want more? He smiled. Because the world hasn't seen what you'll do next. My empire didn't rest on legacy. It rested on war. On ashes. On every betrayal I turned into a stepping stone. Isabelle tried to bury me. Nathan tried to use me. They both forgot, I wasn't born to obey. I was born to conquer. So when Forbes called me the woman who had it all, I didn't correct them. Because I did. And I still wanted more. Not out of greed. But out of hunger. The hunger to never be powerless again. The end.